Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the TF Cast. I'm Willis, and today we're in the solarium, and it's October 9th.
And I'm your host, Jacob Bases. Today with us, we are very pleased to introduce you all to Alaena Klages, who is a fashion designer and has a storefront in St. Peter Atelier. Alaena, if you could just introduce yourself to the audience and let us know how you got involved in the fashion industry and what it's like to have that type of business in St. Peter.
So I'm Alaena Klages. I have a storefront with my mom, Atelier, and then I have a fully denim line by myself called Orinlaen. I got into fashion like a young age. My mom was in bridal. She was a bridal seamstress for 30 plus years. So I grew up around sewing and fashion, and it was quite a natural hobby. I always was kind of in on the trends and found a lot of fun in expressing myself through clothing growing up. I tried to go to school for it. I did not finish school for it and then thought I was done, but kind of found myself keep going back to it. And then post-COVID, my mom was in a career change. I was in a career, and we decided to jump in with a storefront. And it's kind of just taken from there. We've found that there's like a real market and interest in locally made clothing. And it's been really fun and challenging.
Sure. So I kind of want to take a step back right away and just say, like, when you were always into it, do you mean that you were like modifying your own clothes, or like what was that like beginning of that interest like?
So it was always like back to school shopping for us, my sister and I. We would always go shopping, try on whatever we wanted, sneak photos, and then we'd go to the fabric store and we'd be like, okay, I liked that top. Fine, let's find material for it. And then so we would be making a lot of our back to school clothing. And that just like continued. So yeah, I was always kind of trying to modify. Growing up, didn't sew that much. I didn't learn to sew until I was like 12. I was in 4-H. So I had the clothing project was like my project. And that's how I learned from my mom. And then once I definitely learned how to sew, I got really into the construction of clothing, so modifying it. Like, what if you do this and that, and experimenting.
What were some of those early projects like? You said finding a top you like at the store and kind of trying to recreate it, but are there any that stick out as being like really having inspired your like, this is a fun path to be on, this is working well, this is exciting? Yeah,
one of the first dresses I made, I don't even think I had an event for it, but it was, I found the pattern and I really liked it. And it was kind of at the right level. So I started that dress and finished it, and I actually, back to 4-H, made it to the state fair, which is like a really big deal.
Cool.
Yep. So I modeled it at the state fair. And this past summer, I actually remade the dress in a different color and different material, but I like found myself going back to that same pattern. And then I also realized that I've referenced that style quite a few times since then. So that stuck with me. Probably just, I don't know, there's just something about it that I like for myself. I think it's flattering on most people, and it's been cool to make it in different materials because it's pretty versatile.
Sure. Is that like stuff that you've been making for the shop, or is what kind of clothing are you making for Altelier, and how does that play into kind of like what we're talking about?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we've been making, we make women's and men's clothing, and a lot of this stuff, originally it started with just things that we were inspired to make, based off of like sweaters that we'd made ourselves that we got a lot of compliments on. So we were like, okay, there's probably people that are interested in buying these. So we made those, and then more recently, we've been a little bit more like going fabric shopping and it being inspired by material and going along that process of like finding a really cool silk and then being like, we can make a bowling shirt out of this, and then doing that process.
Bowling shirt.
Yeah, so maybe we should just add a little bit of context for like people to understand how this storefront works. So you have a clothing store in St. Peter, and in this clothing store, at least all of the clothes are made by you and your mother.
Yes.
And then you have explain what the other goods are, and then explain what it is that you make.
Yeah, so all the clothing is designed and made by myself and my mom. And then we have just normal boutique items like lotions, perfumes, shoes, socks. And those are all sourced with brands that have like-minded brand values that we do. So that means like sustainability, woman-owned, U.S. made. Kind of have a long list. I try to make sure that they're all they don't all hit all the criteria, but they all hit at least one. Like we have sunglasses that are made from recycled plastic in Hawaii.
Sure. And what is that? It seems like you have some values like built into the store. What is important to you that kind of caused you to like, respond to a need? Like, are these the clothes that you want to wear and give to other people? That kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of like a means to an end in this fact that like I would probably be sewing no matter what. I can say that for my mom too. Like we'd be creating this no matter what. And people are interested in it. So like providing just that service of like you can have something unique and you know where it came from. In our store, we also do alterations. So that's like a lot of a huge part of our business is just normal alterations. But the people that value alterations also seem to value like handmade clothing. The sustainable and ethical side came from my year that I was in fashion school. I had a professor tell me that at some point in my career, I would be going overseas with whatever business hired me, and you have to look the other way to say slave labor or child labor. And that was like, I was already like kind of not into the program, but that was like a big I'm out of here moment. And also why I didn't think I'd be seeing myself back in. But there's definitely a big movement for slow fashion, and like-minded people are trying to find ways for us to like enjoy and experience fashion with not at the expense of somebody else's life. So that's where my like drive comes from, really pushing it. Like I really hope to educate people, like anybody that comes in the store with questions, I like want to help.
Sure. That's pretty cool. I've obviously heard the term fast fashion thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say slow fashion, but I kind of wear my clothes to death, and a lot of them are just things that have been thrown at my head because I just go to a lot of events and stuff.
Right.
But what is the person who is shopping for handmade clothing on a local scale? Like, what are they looking for? Because a lot of the time when I think of like boutique clothing, like that's what I want. Like I want to buy things that are made by people, generally, and like be able to interact with those people. But what is it that the people who are actually buying this stuff want? You know what I mean?
I think they want like, it really is like the quality behind it, because another service that we offer is any piece of clothing you buy with us, the price includes a custom fit. So like if you come in and you like a shirt, like you fell in love with a shirt that we made, but it's like a little too long on you, like that's not a problem because we'll bring it up to the correct length for you so that you're leaving with something that's proportionate to your body and you'll feel so good in something that fits right. But yeah, those people are definitely looking for the quality and something unique. We're using materials that you can't turn around and go find them at like Walmart or Target, because we're sourcing these from fabric stores that are also sourcing all over the world.
Yeah, I would suggest to anyone who like thinks this is even a little bit interesting to just go check out the website, because like I was a little bit surprised. Like off camera, the first question I asked is like, "You really made all this stuff here?" And you said that that's a common thing that like people come into the shop, be like, "You made this, you made this."
Yep, yeah, we
this.
kind of get like questioned pretty hard sometimes. It's like intense, but
But that's really cool, because the point that I was getting to is that you have like to me, it was like, I don't understand how they could make this and sell it kind of like at that price, because it is kind of like normal boutique prices.
Yeah.
Like it's certainly more than you'd pay at a department store, but it's hard to imagine like sourcing and creating and doing all of this stuff. Could you talk a little bit about how you do that and like what the path forward is for, bringing this stuff to people?
Yeah. The pricing right now is like, honestly, is probably a little low for what we're doing, but we also are realistic about the area that we're in. This would look different if we had a store, even just in the Twin Cities. There are stores doing what we're doing in the Twin Cities, and they're probably like twice the price. They also are probably paying twice the price to have a storefront in the Twin Cities. So there's like that balance there. And luckily, we're offering other services like alterations or whatever that is also like helping us stay in business. So realistically, our pricing will go up eventually, but that will just be able to help us continue to be offering better items, higher quality fabrics and stuff like that. But yeah, the sourcing, we do try to find, we keep ourselves in, like, it is just a strict budget. Like, we've definitely fallen in love with some fabrics, but it's $100 a yard. And it takes multiple yards to make one piece of clothing. We can't justify purchasing that right now, but hopefully there is a future where maybe we're running at that level of a business where we can be bringing in like that upscale of stuff.
You mentioned that you're always looking for new stuff and trying to come up with new ideas. What's an example of something that you recently created for the store? And if you could kind of walk through the process of even the fabric pick selection, the design selection, and then the creation, like with a recent example.
Yeah. Recently, for this like fall winter season, we're doing a lot of quilted coats, which is actually an upcycled project. They are pretty trendy, which we don't always specifically stick to what's in trend, but they are pretty trendy. We've seen other boutiques selling them and other designers upcycling. And we found a guy that does auctions up in the cities that had like advertised that he had hundreds of quilts. And then we went up there and he did in this little trailer. He has hundreds of quilts. So we go through what he has for selection and pull what we think would be really cool to like cut up and make into coats. So I don't do that so much. My mom does those projects, but that her process is we pull whatever looks cool, like design-wise, color-wise, pattern. And then with a quilt, it's really fun because you lay it out and it's obviously already been like pieced together. But she really looks at it. It's like a puzzle for her because she'll look at it and she'll be like, okay, this strip here can be what is like the collar's made out of. And like this pattern right here is really cool. Let's make this the back. And then she cuts it accordingly and then pieces it all together. And it's just like a whole new life on that piece of material. So that's been really cool.
And it ends up being a coat, you said?
Yeah,
like a jacket
we started
of sorts?
with like a jacket. We've been playing around with vests. I know we have a few shorts coming.
Because it's like a thicker, it's got a double layer.
We keep the integrity of the quilt, so
cool.
it's still very much like it's like wearing a blanket. But
That's fun. I don't know if I've seen one of those around. I'll have to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, we have more coming.
Jackets.
We just did a big haul of quilts.
All right.
Yeah.
What is something that you haven't made for the shop yet or gotten, but you're wanting to? You gave an example of a more expensive fabric and some stuff, but like, are there any things
I really was hoping that this fall we could make silk lounge pants, and I found some, and that's a great example of I found exactly what I had in mind, but I'm pretty sure it was like $70 or $80 for a yard, and to make like good pants, like flowy, comfy pants, we probably needed about like 2 to 3 yards. So it was like not possible. I did buy enough for myself personally. So I will be wearing them once I get them made. But that's also like kind of how we do it. Like we can't totally justify doing this to make 3 pairs and hopefully that somebody can buy it at the right price. But I can like justify getting it for myself. I'll make it for myself. If I start wearing them around though and people are really interested, we're totally open to like custom orders.
Okay, that's what I
That's
was gonna
part of
ask.
like slow fashion is like a lot of people do made to order. So we'll have the material or we know where we'll get the material, but we don't do anything to it until somebody actually like puts the order in. And then that just helps save on like fabric waste.
Yeah.
That
What's a good example of that slow fashion application? Like, I think in past conversations with you, we've discussed how at one point you did some bridal alterations, but are doing less of those.
Yep.
And are more in the realm of like the mother.
Yeah, we
job.
don't do we don't take on brides anymore
Yeah.
just because it's really time consuming. But we can still do like bridesmaids and mother's gowns. We don't make those. We're just doing alterations on those.
Okay.
I guess I shouldn't say that. We can make them. Right now, we just have a little bit more of a alteration base for that instead of making them from scratch.
So that's less of an example of the
Yeah.
slow fashion and more like maybe a custom or
Right.
an alteration
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah.
So what's an example where someone would be getting a custom piece of clothing? Like maybe they've got an event coming up and they just want an outfit for it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I kind of like this sort of stuff, but it'd be great if it was a different color, my size.
Yeah, exactly. We have like a example right now of a project we're working on is this artist that we actually met through the St. Peter Art Center. She had this fabric, and I'm not quite sure what the backstory is, but there's some kind of backstory with nice fabric that she has that she wants overalls made out of. So she's commissioning us. She found the pattern and she found the material, and we're just constructing it with her. The first step, we actually met with her yesterday. We do what's called a muslin. So it's like just a really bland looking piece of fabric, but it's basically we make the outfit and then it's a good way to fit before cutting into the actual material. So we just did that with her. So we marked like, okay, your straps need to be at this length. This is where your hem is. Now we'll go on to actually cutting into the material she brought. And the next time will be like a potentially, hopefully, her final fit. And she'll leave with, I think she has enough for like 2 pairs. So
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, and the cool thing is she's like a glass artist, so she makes glass buttons. So we're using her buttons that she made on her clothing. So it's going to be like really personal, super unique. But yeah, those are like a great example of like custom made.
So I earlier said that I wear my clothes to death. And the thing is I feel like I'm always in between sizes. So like what'll actually happen to me is like I will get a shirt and like I just love the way that it fits, and then you can't get that again because
Right.
it's like it is like a fast fashion thing. Like I have this shirt that I got at for sure J.C. Penney a few years ago, and it's got like holes from like where my belt gets tightened and like but it's just the most comfortable shirt, and it has like a wide cut neck, and like I like the way that it looks on me, but I've never seen that cut in that store again, and
Yeah.
I've been going back there over and over again looking for it, and
They probably won't bring it.
yeah,
Like once you get within like 6 months of purchasing a product, you'll probably won't see it again.
yeah. But the thing that I've always wanted is I've always wanted to be able to be like, I like this shirt. Can I just like pick different prints of it? And I've seen things like this, like on the internet, where they do like dumb, not a plug at all. MeUndies, like they'll let you pick all these like different. You pick your size and then you pick your print, and then I just don't understand why T-shirts aren't like that right now. You know,
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling to me that it like kind of starts from a template, and I don't have a hard time finding them that fit correctly. But the point being, is that kind of what's like going on there? You have like all these cuts, and then they come to you with a fabric and say like, this is what I want made.
Yeah. So like a little fashion history, like back in like the 50s and 60s, women specifically had their closet consisted of 6 dresses, give or take. But that's because they were all made by a dressmaker that they went into, and they handpicked every detail. They picked their fabric pattern or feel. the style of the dress, even the finishings of like gold or silver buttons and stuff like that. But that guaranteed that they had a closet filled of stuff that they knew they liked the way it fit. They were comfortable with the way it fit. Like exactly what you're saying with the t-shirt. Like you're like, everything about it I like and I feel good in it. But then as things shifted in production and things went overseas a lot, we've like lost a lot of that. In the 90s, 80% of clothing was still made in the US. And like that means like everybody was most likely wearing something made in the US. Now, it's less than 10% of your closet is made in the U.S. Yeah, and like that's really not that big of a time gap.
Yeah, I didn't think the 90s, that was not that long ago.
No,
yeah.
And then if you think about just to the size of people's closets, it's contributed to the fact that our clothing doesn't fit us that well. So you're looking for a gray t-shirt and you think, okay, gray t-shirt, like that makes sense. And you wear it maybe once or twice and it pulls funny or the material doesn't hold up, then you're finding yourself in like 3 months already buying another gray t-shirt. You're not really getting rid of that old one necessarily, but you're like just adding another one. And so, yeah, it falls into like overconsumption too. But
well, in your example too, when they had 6 dresses or smaller wardrobes, they would do a lot of repairs and stuff as well in the house, I'm guessing, to make sure that stuff lasts a long time.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
stays good.
The stuff was made to last is also another thing, like a touchy comment, but like our clothes you're buying from any company now that's not like focused on sustainability or all that is like it's made to fall apart. Like that's under the fast fashion like description. It's made to fall apart because they need you to buy it again. Like it is thought through. It's not just like, oh, they're not paying attention. They're actually like, this can't be made that well because we need it to fall apart because we need people to be buying it again. Like spandex started getting added into denim. Yes, it's comfier, but everybody's like crotches are wearing out and ripping.
Actually, I've noticed that a lot in the last like 20 years is like I do like some of the stuff like the 5-way stretch that they advertise in like Wrangler jeans.
Yeah.
But they do just go out like and I also find that even like I like the fit better of a lot of the non-Glidden band t-shirts that are, I forget the brand name that it is. They fit better in general, but they almost come threadbare. It's like if you just pull them like a little bit, you can see right through it, and it's like, well, this thing is not long for this earth, you know?
Right. yeah. Or you like wash something and it pills the first wash. Like that's just a sign that it's just gonna wear out.
So that's actually a question that immediately comes up when I see. It's something that I don't know if it's based in reality for me, but when I see stuff that's like a boutique, I'm like, I don't know if I know how to wash that. Is that like when you say that your stuff has a higher degree of durability and sustainability, is it also able to be maintained by someone who knows nothing?
Yeah, actually, washing clothes is like a big thing for me because we actually overwash our clothes. You do not need to be using a whole cup of detergent in your washing machine. You shouldn't be really machine drying anything, especially if there's spandex in it. You should actually be air drying it because the second the heat is added from the dryer into your spandex, it actually makes it brittle and it snaps. So that's where you're like pulling out something and you're like, this totally lost its shape. Or, like it looks wonky. It's because the spandex has like snapped out of it.
I've seen that in waistbands and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that in my jeans, like Wranglers, but like I have like compression shorts for exercise and stuff like that. And I've always air dried those just because they're expensive.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't actually think about that as it's making my jeans more brittle.
Yep, exactly. And so yeah, to answer your question, we use natural fiber material. So that means like cotton, silks, linens, wools. And so that adds to the durability of it because we're taking away that like spandex aspect or polyester aspect, which those aren't made to like last or hold up to the way we're washing. But I always say your best bet is to like spot treat anything that need, like usually you're throwing something in the wash because you spilt something on it and or you've worn it for a while and it's like smelly. Obviously, if it's smelly, wash it. But like anything, like if your jeans, if you spilt something on it, like spot clean it. And I feel like you can get away with washing them way less than you are. Depending on your lifestyle also, you really don't need to wash it after one wear, anything. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's situations where people are dirty, but most people aren't. For your denim too, my fun fact is if you throw it, you can actually freeze your denim and it will clean it.
What? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So if you, it won't clean any like stains or spots, but like for like just like the natural like smell of after wearing your clothes for a while, if you throw them in the freezer for 24 hours and then take them out and let them air dry, like thaw and air dry, the smell will be gone.
That is
because it's killing the bacteria.
Do you have like a freezer?
I know.
Where you
I
have
actually
your,
like
a
don't do
compartment for
this. It's
smelling
like my fun fact, and people always go crazy about it. But I'm like, I am not freezing my clothes. But I'm sure if you were dedicated, you could probably get yourself a freezer for your for your clothes.
I think we should just talk about denim too, because you got a big stack of denim here, and you do specialize, or you have some kind of vested interest in denim, and I think you should bring that up. And
so I actually started. So I have a separate brand for denim that's called Orinlaen, and I started that a year before we ever even had a storefront for Atelier. It started off with thrifted denim that I was painting, but since then I do painted stuff for certain pop-ups, but it's not like my main goal for the brand. I do upcycled denim, so that means I'm like cutting it up and making new garments and manipulating the fabric. I chose denim because honestly, I've just always liked it. It kind of became a joke like my senior year of high school. I got overalls. Nobody else was wearing overalls. But I thought they were really cool. And then I thought it was cool because as a kid, I wore overalls all the time. Like I was always in denim. That love for denim, though, has like transpired. I think it's really relatable. Most people wear denim. They're familiar with the material. And it's usually pretty casual, but the looks I'm making are more statement pieces. So I'm like taking something that is everyday wearing. It's kind of thought of as like blue collar, and I'm trying to push it into a space that is maybe a little bit more elegant or fashion forward.
Well, and one of the reasons we're really excited to bring you on today is just recently you had a show with some hometown friends of mine where you debuted your collection. Or it was a debut?
It was, yeah.
So you made a whole bunch of pieces and had, I believe, 5 or 6 models?
I had 6 models, and I tried to count on the way. I think I made 12 pieces. Because, I mean, everybody had a top and a bottom.
Yeah.
And there were 6 months, so yeah.
Everyone walked out in full denim. And it was really cool. It was there's a lot of unique elements to them, I think, either in terms of like the layout or in some of the examples that we might look at a little more closely here. Some cross-hatching patterns and stuff.
Yeah, with this collection, can they just see it if I do this?
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
In this collection, I started playing around with weaving the denim, which actually came from like a thought process in art class as a kid. There's a lot of childhood memories, I guess, here. At one point, they had us weave, like, I'm pretty sure paper, and I just remember thinking that was so fun. So one day, I actually just took a piece of denim and shredded it and started weaving, and I liked the way it came out. So with this collection, I did like this full pair of pants. I redid by just like stripping it and then weaving in another pair of denim.
Oh.
So that's 2 pairs of pants.
Yeah. Yep. Basically, yeah, it is because I took the legs from the darker pair. So yeah, it's like 2 pairs of pants in one.
A little bit warmer, but also with some airflow. So
yeah. The weaving's not super tight, so yeah, it's not insulated, but yeah.
So what are some of the other things that you did for the collection to take this fabric that we all know and are familiar with, and then elevate it, make it sparkle?
I made one of the first pieces I made was this mini skirt made entirely of denim jean waistbands. That came because I had a bunch of waistbands from previous projects that were there. I like keep everything. So every time I cut up a pair of pants, I keep all the scraps and stuff and then just like organize them into like, these were pockets, these were waistbands, because I know I'll come back to them. And I did. I was like kind of inspired. There's this mini skirt from a brand called Diesel that basically is like the tiniest skirt ever. It's just like this big belt. But I had seen that going around like social media earlier this year, and I was like, well, I kind of like the idea of like a belt as a skirt, and it just spiraled into like waistbands, belt type thing, like very layered and textured. And then I also played into that for another look, made like a tube top made out of waistbands.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember those ones standing out to me in the show as being cool with like you said, all the texture, and there's a lot of features or elements on somebody's waistband, like on a jean waistband. So seeing that as a lot of that together was a really cool effect. And I guess I don't know, it reminds me of this thing I saw recently, which was like this runway model wearing DHL tape. Did you see that?
I didn't see that specific one, but I've seen stuff. I think, there's a lot of stuff like that going around too, where it's like unconventional material.
Well, actually, we're familiar with that in Mankato area too, with the Raw Fusion fashion show. I know they're always like they're taking construction materials, or all kinds of stuff.
We were 2019 winners. Woo! Yep, like that's our like little claim.
That's awesome.
Yep, yeah, we got most wearable that year, and then that was our we left on a win. It had been our 6th year in it, and so it felt like a good time to maybe like step away and refresh our thought process. But that was before we were even a store. So
wow.
Yeah.
What does a fashion line look like? So you have some of this stuff available in the store too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, like in a place like St. Peter, which is not exactly a metropolitan area. Like how closely is this? Does this like ride between like art project and
right? I feel like that's a good question
because there's a delineation, right?
There is, and I think I've even like. It's been interesting balancing that, because with Orinlaen at the beginning of the year, I actually did make a denim art installation that's kind of popped around now. And so it also then too is like, oh, this is getting me a lot of attention as an artist. But then I want people to realize that like it's kind of advertising, where I'm like, I actually just make wearable clothing. Because what I made was this huge denim skirt that everyone was invited to write on to show how art brings everybody together and is a community. It's not a wearable skirt. Like, it's super heavy, and it like it's so big, like you can't even walk around in it. So there is a weird balance, because it is really artful. And some people do enjoy the art of it and still want to wear it, but other people actually, I feel like, get scared of the art of it and think it's like a little too out there for them.
Sure.
So like, I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what the balance is.
I think the root of my question comes from, I mean, it is it's like a brand or a line.
Yeah.
And is that like because of like your degree of individuality, or like what caused you to make the separation in the first place?
I think I wanted something that I was always interested in entrepreneurship, and I'm like pretty determined to make this a career and make this like a livable like income and a business. And I also hope that one day it's a business that I have employees, that I'm not necessarily the one sewing every day. And like, I cannot not imagine that like giving up total design control, but I do hope that, I think as like an artist, you wouldn't ever really totally visualize having people working under you to create your art. Whereas for this, I view having a team and a little bit more of a business where there's payroll and there's just more of a business side to it. And I obviously, art is a career, and people have like successful artful careers. Well, I'm not saying that, but I definitely made a conscious decision to run this as a brand. So it's not my name, it's Orinlaen. And like I actually don't wear a lot of my own creations, which is silly, but I don't like it when I go to dress, I'm not actually wearing what I am making, which is interesting.
I mean, do you make them for yourself, or do you make them for an imagined audience?
I make them for an imagined audience. Like the belt, the mini skirt I mentioned is like super cool. I'm super into it, but I personally don't think I would find anything or any reason to ever wear it.
Right on.
And it's not my personal style. And I guess then that's where it plays into being a little bit more of an art. I feel like every piece is a part of me and it's very inspired and emotional. But it's also then it's like a tangent of me. It's separate.
Well, I don't think that there's too much like the idea of like an artist or designer like having a team work to create a creative outlet is, I mean, like lots of large works of art like do exactly, that, especially when it comes to anything that's distributed in any way.
Yeah, well,
True, yeah.
you said too the idea of slow fashion, and I think that kind of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe explains the path more than the artist's path, because like I think art is like it would be hard to call someone's fashion art project slow fashion. It's just kind of like an art exploration. But if you're passionate about this idea of like actually creating things that people are excited to wear and that it's going to last a long time, and some of it has a little bit of extra artistic flair to it too, it kind of feels more like where you're headed with it.
That's a good way to like say it, because when it comes to it, I can talk about the sustainable side of it and the recycled and upcycled and where we source stuff all day, but then there are the people that want that art side of it, and I don't want to answer those questions. Like they're like, what inspired you? And it's like, I don't know. Like I made it more to think of the functionality of it. I like the engineering side of sewing. Like when I was going to school, I was pretty sure if I would have finished the program, I was really interested in going into outerwear or uniforms. So like that would have been working a lot more with like, how do we make fire resistant uniforms for firefighters or anybody else that would need them, or outerwear is a lot more of like a question and an answer. There's a lot more science behind it of like what is a new way to insulate a winter coat, and what's functional for snowboarders. I was
a lot
like
of material selection and engineering kind of behind it.
I was like specifically interested in more of like the snowboarding aspects of stuff of like how to make it functional and like but breathable and but insulated. Where are they going? And then there's like is still a cool style aspect to it, but I don't know if I would have ended up on a team. I don't know if that's what I would have ended up being.
That's really fun actually. I was a snowboarder, and it kind of took me back to thinking about the slopes as this unique space where you're dressing up and you're picking an outfit. A lot of people have really like chosen snow outfits, that go on over their stuff. Maybe it matches their snowboard. I remember I was so pumped. I got this like all turquoise blue outfit. Worked great. I actually still wear it, and I get a lot of compliments now more than I did when I was a kid because it's in style now, where they're making a lot of these monochromatic, like one pieces or like this light purple or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I was aware that the slopes were like a fashion place, but when you put it like that, it's fun that there's these different markets being created in different places. I mean, there's a whole outdoor market for camping and all kinds of stuff as well.
I worked a season in Aspen, so I got like a first up close glance on like how that mixes, because that was definitely high end and it was a fashion show, like on and off, like everywhere you go, people were like wanted you to pay attention to what they were wearing. And then it also was cool because then like the X Games are there, so going to the X Games was like just like a really cool experience to see, like you knew that like what they were wearing, like the like athletes were wearing, was going to be paid attention to, which is also now really current. I feel like more than ever, people are paying attention to like what are football players wearing as they walk into the locker room. Like, I don't really remember nobody paid attention to that when we were like growing up. But now I feel like I have like a little cousin that he's so into football and he's like, I gotta wear my chains because they're wearing chains. So it's interesting to see too, like everybody's being influenced in all different aspects. So when it comes down to like what we want to design, we don't feel like we have to follow these trends. Because also, like you said too, you bought something that was technically being sold years ago, but now it's trendy.
Yeah.
Like everything's moving so fast that we're more focused on people just wearing what they want to wear and finding something that fits good. And then we're guaranteeing you that it will last. Therefore, at some point, it will be in style.
I really like that. But I feel like, I do feel like that is basically a thing now where, you know, we live a second life, everyone basically on the internet. And whatever little niche thing that you're interested in, like you have a little corner of the world that is that. And even if you're like the only person who is, wearing like all black tracksuits or something every day, all of the time, like there's your little corner of the internet where they're like, that's the sickest outfit I've ever seen. And like you live there almost as much as you live in the real world. I mean, well, kind of
more so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we brought up, I think before we started chatting, before we started recording, was the idea that there are very few or almost zero machines that can produce a finished piece of clothing.
Yeah.
And I've just been like, that's been kind of sitting in my head since you mentioned it. Because I think that I made an assumption about like most of the clothes that I probably own were produced by like some machine that kind of cut it somehow. I don't know, somehow put it all together.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have an understanding too of how garments go together, it's probably pretty easy to make up
little
like
glue,
a robot.
little thread. I don't know. I'm wearing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't totally know either until I dove into this as like a career and took the responsibility to like go to forums and get educated. It's a really sad reality though, because there's not, when they talk about fast fashion and then it's talked about like overseas manufacturing, and I think that's the word. I think factories, just people kind of assume machine.
Yeah, we've automated factories here at least, or we think about automation as being this like driving force within factories, but I think where you're going with it is in some countries they don't have the ability to automate these things, or it's much more cost effective for them to use.
Right. Yeah. The reality of it is, it's in these third world countries, and it's these factories where the workers actually live there. But it's a really nasty cycle. They have to pay to live there, but they also have to live there. And they're only paid enough to be able to afford to live there. So they're not allowed, like, there's no chance to like ever get out of the factories for them.
They're not going to like work for 10 years and buy a house.
Exactly. Yeah. They can't work. They physically can't work enough to save because they're already working. It's like they say they work like 12-hour days and then they work 364 days a year. Like they don't get days off, they don't get holiday break, and they don't get weekends. And they're really scary places. And these people are making them, but that is what we're wearing. And people don't really, that's a hard reality to face. But yeah, there aren't robots, and it is people, and it is slave labor. But also slave labor is happening in the US. At factories. That's also something that I also, again, wasn't aware of. I was like, okay, well, US made, but there are a few factories that are slipping under the rules and getting away with it because they're not paying enough to like allow anybody to ever get out of that job. Basically. But yeah,
it's like creating an environment for someone where they have no choice but to like continue working in that environment.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's a weird flip side. There's days I'm like at my sewing machine and I'm like, I'm so lucky that I get to do this and enjoy, and I can also just like take a break whenever I want, which is also just a luxury of being my own boss too. But it's still like, it's wild to think that there's just a whole world where somebody's doing what I'm doing, but it's on like against their will, basically.
Yeah, well, one of the other things that I feel like has been coming up a lot in conversations, or culture recently, is this idea that now everything's made out of plastic, and we're becoming more aware of the stuff that was always made out of plastic, but is now like with microplastics. And you're like,
Right.
wow, fleece was this thought to be this great outdoor brand. Take it to the boundary waters, it dries quick. But now it's like, well, I was just sloughing off microplastics my whole trip.
Yep. Yeah.
How did we get here? If you've got any awareness of that, and then like, I don't know, what are we doing about it?
To my knowledge, it came from the fact that they could produce some of the materials that people are most common with or know that are plastic are like polyester, lycra, spandex. There's other ones, rayon, satin, like fake silk. Those are all man-made materials. Therefore, there's got to be plastic in them. Depending on how other things manufactured, there is probably microplastics and everything. But
Yeah.
I think it really just came to a cost thing. You can track it back. I never remember quite when the dates were, but it would have been like this about the 60s. My grandma just always said that once elastic waistbands happened, people got fat. So I just think of like, that was always her thing. Cause she said her growing up, there was nothing stretchy about a fabric because there isn't. If you're using raw material, it's not stretchy.
You got to fit into your 6 outfits.
Exactly. Yeah. You got that dress custom made. You have to fit into it. But that's like interesting to think of. Yeah. It basically goes along the lines of like when clothes got comfy, like when the more like athleisure became more popular. And at first, they were all marketed really well. Like they're either like sweat wicking or they are more comfortable.
Or the form fitting. I mean, the form fitting is a huge piece, I think, because it would be prohibitively difficult to make like a cotton or a jean and fit like, I guess we do fitted jeans. Maybe you can.
But those aren't raw denim. They have the spandex in them.
Yeah.
Anything that says like stretch, it's like not going to be natural.
They didn't want to say like added plastic.
Right. Yeah, because basically it's just one of those things that people never questioned, so they got away with it.
But I mean, we also didn't. I don't think we knew in the beginning like how much plastic was going to be put in the environment, and I feel like now we've kind of. We're like saying like, hey, we got to rein this in. And then like, basically what we're being told is like, well, you're going to like pay for that as a consumer in every way. We're not going back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're like, a little far from that. And I think like everything, in general, plastic got introduced to make everything making a more comfortable lifestyle, making things more convenient. So I mean, like a way to avoid it though, is focusing on like turning your garment inside out and just looking at what it's made from. Like, luckily, a lot of band tees are made from 100% cotton t-shirts. Like, band merch is still pretty wasteful. Like, that whole side of it, which I, like, just learned about, too. And I'm like, the more you learn, it's just kind of like, oh, a no-brainer. Like, duh. Of course, that's not the most environmental, but... But yeah, it's like focusing. There are brands out there now too that are really focused on making sure that they're not using like synthetic fibers. But it like just basically
Altelier.
Yep, like Atelier or Orinlaen technically also because I don't use any denim that has stretch because you can't really cut it up.
Okay.
But there's other brands and basically you just need to like educate yourself and know what to look for. It's still out there. Thrifting is also a good option. If you're getting vintage clothing, you're shopping back in the times when stuff was better made or like before some of that stuff was even in existence. So you can kind of guarantee that some of that stuff is going to be good quality.
Well, plastics are in everything, and it does seem tough to avoid. Recently in our house, and I can't take any credit for this, but JC's been crocheting cotton like dish scrubbies. So we're replacing our sponges with cotton handmade stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, works great. So, yeah. There'll be some for sale at the Art Center St. Peter in about a couple weeks. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, it seems like it's a really loud conversation right now. Is this like idea of the plastics being an issue, and nobody has solutions. Everyone's just
Well, no, I think that nobody has solutions that don't, like, no. The problem is that you're not going to, like, say, like, hey, corporate profits have risen X amount in the last, like, 15 years, and it's because we've found cheaper labor at countries that are willing to give it to us, and we've used cheaper materials. Like, now you're making X amount more profit, but, like, they're not going to take away the profit and go back.
Right.
Like, and that's what needs to happen, because we weren't paying more for clothes before. We've been paying the same amount or more, and like the price of them has gone down. And I mean, if in the countries where these factories exist, it is not cheaper to automate it, and it can't be, because their primary export is labor at that cost. And that has its own list of problems. I mean, I wish that it was just not legal for American companies to use that type of labor.
Right.
It's actually mind-boggling to me that it's like one of those things that we just kind of have to like slough off and accept. Like, oh well, some kid made your cell phone. It's like, well, what? Like, why do we bring that up? Like, it's just like this like baseline horror that is like that's like simmering underneath our society. It's like, is there actually anything, like, is there a person we could yell at? Like, I know they're not in this room.
Well, we've been yelled at. I feel like people have gotten definitely offensive that we're trying to push an agenda, and it's like, it's just up my passion, just educating, not trying to like tell you you're doing anything wrong, because you're not, because it is what's accessible, and most people didn't know. I didn't know 3 years ago. Like, until I really realized, and then I found ways to learn more.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people get cagey about that stuff. I mean, if you talk about like foods, like veganism or something like that, it's a luxury. It's a luxury lifestyle that comes with being able to afford more of certain things. And like, things have just gotten tighter and tighter in America for people who are, working folks, and they can't afford to make those, conscious decisions. And I always think about styrofoam, because I hate styrofoam. I hate the way it sounds. I hate the way it looks. I hate seeing it on the ground. There's nothing that I like about styrofoam. But like, when people are like, don't use styrofoam, like, they'll say that to, like, I've worked places and people are like, why do you use styrofoam here? And it's like, it's on the shelf, dude.
Right.
Like, I didn't make the styrofoam. Like, we don't cut celery and like form the styrofoam back there. It just, it's sitting on the shelf and we bought it. It needs to be unmade.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's kind of the issue with fast fashion, is like, they're making the biggest amount of clothing. Like, they already know, they're conscious of the fact that they're making more clothing than they know they will sell. And so, it's like, you buying it isn't really the issue necessarily. You could still make better choices, because if obviously as a whole, if we lowered our sales, they would maybe change their ways. But like, to talk about the fact though that it's like luxury, that's also why we're offering, kind of with our whole mission of educating people and just getting the word out there about conscious shopping. That's also why we still offer alterations. There was definitely discussion of like, do we kind of ditch it and just full force into like focusing on making our own clothing? But alterations provide I shouldn't say such an affordable, but a much more affordable way to maintain and sustain like decent clothing. You can buy jeans that are at your price range, but then come to us and get them taken in correctly or get them hemmed. Therefore, they're fitting you better. You're going to wear them more. And we do a lot of patches. We patch a lot of jeans, and we patch pockets. Well, I mean, we'll patch anything you want us to patch. And it's cool to know that like that is giving it another life. Like, you could probably wear it for another, hopefully like 3 years. And so, alterations is a really good option if you feel like you want to be more conscious but don't know where to start.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into a question that I was working on, which is like, how do we say someone's like, yeah, that resonates with me. I want more natural fibers in my clothing. I want to support businesses that are doing that. Firstly, go to Atelier.
Yeah.
And then secondly, like, what do people do? Like, how is there a shift towards more natural fibers and clothing, more American-made clothing, or is this something we're still kind of like really far away from?
I feel like it's something we're probably more like we're far away from. It is prominent in like boutiques, I think, certain ones, like, and you'll know the ones that's their mission. Like they're gonna tell you. It's not like there's definitely boutiques that unfortunately are huge contributors into the fast fashion because they've realized that it's a good turnaround for income for them because they can buy something really cheap and they don't have to worry too much about sales because they can mark it up.
Yeah.
But there are boutiques that are either like us who are creating their own product at a like sustainable practice, or they are doing the research and finding businesses to order from. Unfortunately, I've seen a few close in the Twin Cities, so that makes it feel like we are getting farther away from it. But yeah, I guess I don't.
Well, it's tough. It's probably a margin issue too. You know, it's like if everything costs more and you can't necessarily charge 3 times as much, you're just losing your margin there. So it's kind of back to the profit motives of those companies who are creating the situation. Well, I guess, yeah, keep shopping at your local spot and keep getting your clothes repaired and upgraded, I think.
Yeah. I've always had really good luck with repairing things through people. I've had some clothes repaired, and I think, probably the best thing that I had a backpack repaired by Aaron Biggie, and that hung on for there was a while where I got sick of the backpack, so I just kept picking it up by the spot he had repaired it, like hoping that it would break, so I could justify buying a new one. Right. And then something else broke that caused me to replace it. But that repair held better than the original bag.
And like get your zippers replaced and coats. Those are like the first thing to go, and it's like you definitely spent a lot of money on that. So a zipper replacement is like, if you get a decent zipper, it's like $30 on a winter coat.
Really?
But then usually that's the only thing that's wrong.
Yeah, I know somebody I'm going to tell about that. They got the zipper they complain about all the time. I'm going to tell them to go get it fixed.
What's the shopping experience like? I feel like we should bring it back to a place that people can go and start working towards plugs. Like when someone walks into the shop, what will they be greeted with, and what will they see?
So we actually have a beautiful space. It's was recently renovated by Amber Patterson Design. But when you walk in, you're actually in our like boutique setting, and you can see us in the back. We have like a really cool like glass box is what I call it, but that's where we sew. So you actually like can see us sewing. But it's totally shoppable. All our clothing that's for sale is out on the racks along with all the other products. And then if you are looking for alterations, we're open Wednesdays through Saturdays, 10 to 4, and you can just walk in with your repairs. If you feel more comfortable with appointments, we do take appointments on Tuesdays and like Thursday evenings, if that works better for people. And you can just contact us on Facebook or find our phone number on Google.
Sure. And
where else would you want to drive people to just while we're doing all that? Instagram.
Yeah. Our Instagram is Altelier Creative, which is Altelier Creative. And then All My Denim, which is a little bit more of a funkier Instagram. Because I post a lot more about the shows I'm doing and photo shoots and stuff like that. And that is Orinlaen, which is Orinlaen. Yeah.
Cool. Sure. Any other shout outs you want to do, or like what's the address? Like if people want to pop in?
Our store is at 216 South Minnesota Avenue, St. Peter.
Cool. Well, anything else you wanna touch on before we wrap?
No. I mean, thank you guys.
Yeah,
And
thanks for coming on.
everybody can feel free to I'll always talk about fast fashion, slow fashion, all the sustainable stuff. So people can always reach out if they have questions. And I'll try my best to answer.
Cool. Well, thank you. I mean, it's important, and I don't think that, like I don't know enough about fashion. I think ask the right questions in this setting at all, But it is really interesting, and it is something that I think about a lot. Is how people are treated, so I can have my lifestyle. So, thanks for thinking about it and giving someone an alternative here in Minnesota to have an option to have someone actually make their clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining us.